Hey guys, what's up? Azrach here and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a special one because I'm taking you behind the scenes to show you how I designed and sculpted this incredible action figure. When my awesome Patreon community picked this figure, I knew this was going to be a challenge, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. Now, I wasn't too worried about the joints and the engineering because my system's starting to work, but I was more worried about the texturing, and this had me scratching my head. Like, I honestly had no clue how I was going to make the skin and the scales look just right, so it took a lot of trial and error. There were definite moments of doubt throughout the sculpting process, and I was second guessing myself constantly, redoing this figure 10 times over. But here's the thing, I kept showing my progress to the missus and I was like, hey, does this look good, or do you think this works? And she really clutched it. She gave me pointers on what I needed to improve, but also reassured me on parts that were already working well. And her encouragement kept me going, and after a lot of trial and error, I finally got to a place where I was really happy with the results. So settle down and buckle up, because in this video we're diving into all of the design details, the engineering upgrades, and the articulation magic that brought this figure to life. So as always, today's video is sponsored by PCBWay, the one-stop shop for all of your PCB manufacturing and 3D printing needs. If you're an engineer, maker, or a hobbyist looking to bring your projects to life, PCBWay offers high-quality printed circuit boards at affordable prices and a range of additional services that make your prototypes a reality. But it does not stop there. PCBWay also offers top-notch 3D printing services, whether you're working with resin, metal, plastics, or any other advanced material. Their 3D printing capabilities are perfect for prototypes, custom parts, and even creative projects. You can upload your designs, choose from a variety of materials, and unbox your ideas and have them come to life. And here's the best part. PCBWay is celebrating the holiday season with a massive Christmas promotion. Right now, you can get 50% off on their 3D printing services. That's right, half off. And if you've been holding off on a project, now is the perfect time to take advantage of this deal. So whether you need a PCB or a precise 3D printed part or both, head over to PCBWay.com to get started today. I'll drop the link in the description below, so don't miss out on this amazing Christmas deal. Now back to the video. So for the design, I put a ton of effort into the head of this action figure because that's where the figure really comes to life. The eyes have this sunken depth, almost as if he was peering at you from the dark. Picture staring into these eyes in an alleyway in a dark rainy night. So that's really scary. I think I've got that really well here. The scales across the face are varied and layered to show off these sharp transitions and the unique planes of his face. On top, I gave him hardened armor-like scales so that he has a naturally strong defense along with all of his offensive capabilities. And of course, the pearly whites, those razor-sharp teeth, look ready to snap at anything stupid enough to wander close enough. Moving down to the body, here's where the gator vibes kick in. The chest and belly are larger, softer scales that mimic a gator's underbelly. Is he vulnerable? Maybe just a little bit, but here's the flip side. It transitions into a fortress of hardened scales on the back. Think built-in armor, the kind of protection he'd need if he ever had a run-in with a certain dart detective. His hands and legs are absolute units, massive, muscular, and definitely explosive. This guy screams raw animalistic power. And the claws, they sure are sharp and painted black for the added effect of hopelessness. Now with the trunks and jeans, here's where I added some fabric vibes. The figure is rocking a worn pair of jeans, and I added in a lot of texturing to mimic jeans at this scale and also give him some tears for a possibility to paint some depth in. The scales continue all the way down to his calves into these gigantic feet, locking in the theme of heavily armored, scaly durability. When it came to the joints, I made some key decisions to experiment and streamline the printing process, so let's break that down. For the head and the neck, I kept the changes minimum because honestly they work great as they are with my current system. Now for the body, I made a big call to remove the split between the chest and the back. I did that to keep the scales flowing naturally without any awkward breaks. And at the same time, I hollowed out some areas to reduce the resin usage, so hopefully that's smart and efficient. Elbows were a real challenge because I really wanted to incorporate a double jointed elbow, but with the massive biceps, it just wasn't practical. Instead, I went with a single joint but made sure to include a swivel at both the biceps and the elbows. This gives you a ton of posing options without sacrificing any of the functionality, and hopefully makes up for the double elbows as well. To make assembly easier, I added arrow marks on the elbow joints. Simple rule is the triangle always faces up and it sits inside facing towards the body. That should make things hopefully foolproof. The abdomen went through a little bit of a change too. I added a new joint that replaces the ball joint design. Now the figure has a 360-degree swivel, which opens up some serious dynamic posing potential and also adds stability to the figure. Now with the trunks and the hips, this is where I had a bit of a regret. I decided to skip the drop-down hips, which I typically use, usually to help improve the clearance and the range of motion for the thighs. But instead I went with standard hips, and I quickly realized the articulation wasn't quite there. The joints pop in fine, but the movements feel restricted because of the sculpted parts that hinder the movement quite a bit. I did fix the thigh and the hip joint in my digital files, but I'm holding off on printing them now for myself. But the added articulation in the hips with the new joints came with a small price. There's a bit of a gappiness in the joint and it's not super noticeable with the 3D renders, but I feel like it might be more visible in like an actual 3D printed figure. The knees follow the same system with the arrow marks as the elbows, so you always know which direction they face and they always face in and up for the triangles. For the ankles, I simplified the design for a seamless transition. Plus, with the ankle shackles covering up the joint, adding a ball joint to the feet was a no-brainer, so I added a double ball peg. It works well and does not lose much articulation, so that's a plus. There was a huge learning process in this figure because I was taking some liberties and making some changes. Although there were some compromises, I'm still really proud of the result. Let me know what you think of the joint decisions and what improvements you'd like to see in future updates. So with bigger parts come heavier supports. Most of my figures are smaller models, so I can typically get away with using small supports. And I add supports using my favorite slicer, Lychee. It is my go-to because of its excellent auto support capabilities. So if you're wanting to check a slicer out, this is probably the one that I use, so maybe you can look at it as well. But printing Murder Gator was a whole different beast. The parts were far larger than my usual 1/12 scale action figures, so I had to step up my support game. This meant that using medium and at times large supports to ensure that the figure stayed solidly on the build plate and avoided any printing failures. Once the printing was done, because of the larger supports, a lot of sanding was needed to prepare the figure for painting. It's all part of the process, but this time the cleanup was a little bit more intense due to the heavier supports. So I have to give a huge shout out to my wife who took the time to sand down most of the support nubs. She had to use a Dremel tool instead of our usual sanding paper, which made the job slightly easier. So she thinks that we will continue to use it in the future as well. And thanks to her effort, the figure came out looking clean. Alright folks, let me say it up front. This paint job is not my work. I had zero hand in painting this beauty, and once again, I called in reinforcements and my wife absolutely knocked it out of the park with her painting skills. She took on the entire paint job from the smooth, even base layers to the tiniest, most intricate details like the eyes and the teeth. For the base coats, she used her trusty Iwata airbrush, which gives her that perfect professional finish. And when it came to the finer details, she switched to a paintbrush and worked her magic. For all of you paint enthusiasts out there, most of the colors she used came from Vallejo. They are her go-to paints for projects like this, and let me tell you, the results speak for themselves. So a huge shout out to my wife for turning this 3D print into a true work of art. I handle the modeling, engineering, and printing, and she handles the painting and detailing, so it's teamwork at its finest. So my version of this figure is closer to the animated series where this guy is supposed to be human with an extreme skin condition. He is big and bulky, similar to a wrestler, but not overly monstrous in size. So that is why I have incorporated a lot of human-like features, but I exaggerated them quite a bit to make him big and bulky. So here we have a couple of the other action figures at 6-inch scale that I've 3D printed. And this guy is a lot taller than the other figures in my line. So I think this gives you a good comparison of how tall he will be against 6-inch scale action figures. So here we have a couple of my other bigger action figures that I've 3D printed and sculpted myself. So this is the first figure I made that was a little bit bigger, and I think the sculpt work on that was a little bit not there. With this guy, there's a whole bunch more sculpting and the anatomy is a little bit better. And I think with our figure today, the anatomy is a lot better and the sculpting details are, I think, just a little bit more better in terms of the quality and how far I've come. So it's like a good thing to just reflect back on and see that I have been improving, so that keeps me going, which is, I think, a good thing. So here we have absolutely humongous figures. On the left here, we've got the McFarlane DC Multiverse Killer Croc, who is a 7-inch action figure. So I think to the top of his head, he's probably 10-11 inches. Here we have the DCUC Killer Croc action figure on the right, and he is a humongous figure, even though he is a 6-inch scale figure. So yeah, I mean, that's how drastic you can go with Killer Croc sizes. And here on the left, we've got the Marvel Legends Abomination figure customized into a Killer Croc action figure. It's a third-party figure, but still humongous. So I guess I just wanted to show you guys all the different figures I had. And that's the video, guys. We've taken a deep dive into the designing, engineering, and painting process for this incredible action figure, and it's been a wild ride from start to finish. From the hardened scales to the meticulous joint articulation to the incredible painting, this figure has been a labor of love and a massive learning experience. The only thing I would change about this figure is the thigh joints, but hindsight is 2020. On every other occasion, I would print and test the joints, but we were eager to paint this figure, so I skipped that testing phase. So I'll make sure to do that in my future figures. I hope you enjoyed seeing the behind the scene process and all the decisions, challenges, and victories that went into bringing this figure to life. Whether you're here as a fellow maker, a collector, or just someone who loves creative projects, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know what you think of the final figure. What would you improve, or what features would you like to see in future projects? And we can chat in the comment section below. A massive thank you for my Patreon community for choosing this figure and continuing to support my work. And a big shout out to today's sponsor PCBWay for making projects like this possible. Don't forget to check out their holiday promotion for up to 50% off 3D printing services. Links are in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this figure and this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.